Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Leafs Talk Live. You know me, I'm your guy Jake, and this week we have a special guest on the show. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, I am Brandon. Also, my channel is Let's Talk NHL, and I am very, very excited to be on the show. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining. It's good to get another Leafs fan on Leafs Talk Live. That's what this is all about. And throughout this show, we're going to be taking your trade offers. So make sure if you're watching this video, stay active in the comments section, smash the like button, hit the notification bell, send in your trade offers for us. We're going to act as the Maple Leafs GM, and you let us know, or we'll let you know if we'd accept that or not and why not. So we're going to start off this show with a little on this day in Maple Leafs history segment. So on this day in Maple Leafs history, on December 1st, 1934, the Toronto Maple Leafs defeated the St. Louis Eagles 4-3 to set an NHL record for the most wins to start a season with 8. But they reset this record in 1993 and won 10 in a row. So that's a little glimpse of how the Maple Leafs started their season back in 1934. And we're going to fast forward to 2020, 2021 and get into some of our expectations for the Maple Leafs this upcoming season. So I want to start off by asking you, who do you think will be the most improved player on the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2021?
Well, that's a tough one for sure, but I think that going into next season was such a short season, 48 games, everything, you got to give it your all. And for a guy, in my opinion, like Zach Hyman, who had 39 points I don't even think he played a full season last year. I think he's going to try to go for maybe that 22, 24 range because of the amount of games he has. And I think that he has the ability to do that. He's still got a lot of room to grow. I find that he does fit on the first line decently, but maybe if they even gave him a shot at a second line where there's not too much pressure, playing with a guy like John Tavares could help him out a lot, improve. And even for a guy like William Nylander, I think that with the slump that he had, he's going to be an improving player as well because he had a slump in the season where they didn't really figure out his contract exactly, but then last year they figured stuff out and he already was on such a good pace and had one of his best seasons. So I think that he's also going to be an improving player as well.
Okay, so I'm going to go a different route. And my most improved player for the Maple Leafs in 2021, you might be surprised because he's been in the NHL for over 20 years, but I'm saying Joe Thornton. He's out in Switzerland right now, still playing NHL when he could be sitting at home at over 40 years of age. Most players would be, but he has the opportunity to play in Switzerland. It's a beautiful place. He's put up 4 goals and 4 assists in 7 games in Switzerland. That's an exciting sign that looks to be promising heading into the season with the Maple Leafs. He wants to win. He's a winner. He hasn't won the cup yet, but that's the ultimate goal here in Toronto.
Absolutely.
So, as I said, make sure you send in your trade offers throughout the show. We're going to post as many of them as we can. And I wanted to get into letting you guys know who my biggest surprise player for the Maple Leafs will be in 2021. I've got Jimmy Vesey. A lot of people, this is someone that he doesn't really get talked about too much. Jimmy Vesey was brought in on a bargain deal prior to last year when he was on a really bad Buffalo team. He put up 16 goals in the 2 years before that and then 17 the year before that. He can score, and I'd expect him to score 10 to 15 goals in a shortened, condensed 48-game season with the Maple Leafs. And not only can he score, but Jimmy Vesey can also fight. I'm going to show you a little clip of Jimmy Vesey here. I'm going to show you a couple. So that's Jimmy Vesey. That's the toughness element that he brings. And then this is a goal he scored for the Sabres against us last season. Let me get rid of this. He made Hutchison look silly.
What a pass by Ryan or Butte. And a nice finish.
I think Jimmy Vesey is going to be a huge addition for this team at over 6 feet tall. Jimmy Vesey, definitely an underrated signing, and I expect him to be the biggest surprise on this Maple Leafs roster in 2021. What do you think?
I'd say that's a pretty good pick for that. I definitely would agree with a lot of those facts. But for my personal opinion, I think I'm going to go with a guy like TJ Brody. And the main reason why is just because I think the Leafs over the past couple of years haven't really found Morgan Rielly his partner yet. And it's been a while since we've really seen him with a good partner. Obviously, Jake Gardiner was an okay fit. I think the last fit that really was working well was Ron Hainsey. But I think that adding a guy like who can still put up decent amount of points as I would consider a defensive defenseman on that first line is going to help out the team a lot and give Morgan Rielly a lot more help as well.
Yeah, that TJ Brody signing, that's exciting to see what he can do and what he can bring to this team this year. I consider him more of a stay-at-home defenseman as well. I've had a Calgary fan on this show tell me he's not a stay-at-home defenseman, but that's just my analysis of what I've seen from him. So I've got to ask here, what NHL team, because I'm looking around the league, the landscape's changing a lot this offseason. Some teams can afford to put up a good lineup, other teams not so much due to the pandemic, what's going on in the world. So, in your opinion, what NHL team is the most improved?
Now, that's a very, very good question, and I know a lot of people are going to be very grilled or upset about a Leafs fan saying this, but I got to give it to the Montreal Canadiens, mainly just because even before free agency happened or before the playoffs happened, they were already playing well against Pittsburgh in the series. And I believe they added defenseman Joel Edmundson from the Carolina Hurricanes. They added Josh Anderson, I believe his name is, from the Columbus Blue Jackets. He was part of the Max Domi trade. And adding a guy like him who's still young and has time to grow could definitely help them out a lot. They still got a lot of young talent as well. Nick Suzuki, Kotkaniemi. Adding Tyler Toffoli from free agency is another good addition because he's a good winger and he's still got a lot of years left out to play. Still puts up decent, consistent points. He did well when he even got traded from the Kings to Vancouver. And that's very good to see the Habs get him. And adding backup goalie Jake Allen, obviously a veteran goalie from the St. Louis Blues, and I think could help out a lot in the crease for Montreal next season for sure.
This guy is talking about the Montreal Canadiens being the most improved team. I'm gonna go a different route, and I'm gonna say I had Marty Beer on last week on the show. He's pretty convincing, and I thought this beforehand. The Buffalo Sabres, I like what they're doing a lot in that organization. They signed Taylor Hall to a 1-year, $8 million contract to, keep Jack Eichel content somewhat. They brought in Eric Stahl in a trade. I like what they're doing. I think that the Buffalo Sabres are a fringe playoff team this year, but it's going to be hard if they're in a division with Tampa Bay, Boston, and these kind of teams, Florida. It's going to be tough for them, but I see the Buffalo Sabres as the most improved team this year. And we've got some trade offers in the comments section, so let's get to them. So let's start off with this one. To the Toronto Maple Leafs, PK Subban with retained salary to the from the New Jersey Devil. Okay, sorry. New Jersey Devils trade PK Subban to us for Alex Kerfoot, Rasmus Sandin, and Timothy Liljegren. You want to start off with this?
Sure. I think PK is a good player. I think he does help out many teams. Even with Nashville, when they went to the Cup final, he was a big, important key to that team. With Montreal, he was a big key. But I just don't think that trading a center and two uprising future defensemen who have potential to be just as good as many players or many defensemen in the league as of right now, I don't think that would really be necessary to do right now because we don't know exactly how they're going to pan out in the NHL. Rasmus Sandin had 8 points in 22 games last year, which isn't really that bad for NHL-wise, considering he's so young. And Alex Kerfoot definitely helped us out on that third line for center. So I don't think I would accept that just because it's a lot to give up and they're good players to keep.
Well, I'm going to go with my guy Ron Keats here. My guy Ron Keats, always in the comments section. Thank you for your viewership. Thank you for coming back onto the show. Shout out to my guy Ron Keats. Hard no on that deal. Rasmus Sandin, Timothy Liljegren, 2 first-round draft picks. You have Alex Kerfoot. He's kind of one of our third-line pieces, I'd say. I can't have that trade go through. And if Kyle Dubas were to accept that, he should be fired. 100%.
Grilled for life.
Hockey Buzz website has mentioned a rumored Nylander trade option to Philly for Travis Sanheim. Thoughts?
That could be good. It just really depends on how both players feel about it, because a lot of players, they change the way they play as soon as they get to a new team. Like, for instance, Connor Brown wasn't really given the shot on the Leafs too much. He still did pretty good, but then as soon as he goes to the Ottawa Senators, he's like their second best points per game player, and you never know what could happen. But I feel like just because Nylander is still room for improvement and he's still one of our top guys, I don't think I would accept that, but that is a very interesting trade for sure.
I'm going to go back to Ron Keats' comment from the trade before. Hard no. William Nylander, he gets criticized a lot. Some people say he skates around like a fairy, whatever. I consider Nylander's contract one of the better contracts on the team and the best of the core four. $6.7 million is a damn good deal. People just don't like the way that he got the money in the holdout. But, I mean, if it was me or you, I think I'd want my money too. And he didn't ask for too much. So, I mean, Nylander's potential, he's got a lot. And I wouldn't want to see him go elsewhere because he'd probably do good things elsewhere. This trade offer here from Sledge Hockey 101. Welcome back to the show. Thank you for watching. John Tavares straight up for Drew Doughty. I'm going back to my guy Ron Keats. Hard no. John Tavares also has a no trade clause, so this trade is impossible. But not considering that, John Tavares is our hometown guy. People don't like his contract. We got to give John Tavares a chance. He's 6th in points per game in franchise history. I know it's a rather small sample size, but going forward, John Tavares is the captain of this team. Trading him away would be detrimental to our success.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. Mainly just because if you remove a guy who I think his contract's like around $9 million, something like that, which isn't really even that bad of a contract for a guy like him, I feel like a lot of people don't understand the value and how expensive Matthews and Marner's contracts are, especially because they shouldn't be like that high. You got a guy like Leon Draisaitl who's had 2 100-point seasons in a row, and he's only making $7 million, which is less than John Tavares. So if guys like Draisaitl are getting paid that much and Matthews and Marner are both up there with like $11 million, I don't really think that they should be getting paid that much. And that's why I feel like John Tavares is that key guy, because his contract is fair. And I definitely think that he does do very, very well as a team captain. And he's been guiding the team to the right path for sure.
I think his contract was 7 years, $77 million, annual average $11 million a year.
$11 million a year, yes.
Does that change your thoughts at all, or?
No, just because I think that they're still like he's still one of those players that puts up the decent amount of points. Maybe go down to like 10 mil, maybe like 11 mil, maybe still a little bit too much, but still, I think he deserves the money that he's been getting.
I think so too. And last week, Marty Biron on the show, he mentioned the fact that John Tavares, he doesn't go out 3 days before a game. You can't get John Tavares off track. John Tavares is he's a lead by example kind of guy, and that's exactly what the Maple Leafs need.
he works well both away and home games, where some other players I find do struggle when they are away, but he works well both ways, and that's what keeps him going for sure.
Now, staying on the topic of John Tavares and Austin Matthews, the NHL Network released some rankings this week. Their top 20 of each position and their top 10 goalies. Frederik Andersen was not on that list. But we're going to start off talking about the centers. At number 5, you had Austin Matthews. At number 14, John Tavares. So, as I said, we're going to stick with John Tavares. How do you feel about Tavares' ranking as number 14 center in the NHL?
I consider him a top 10 for sure. I don't really picture him going anywhere above a top 10. Because I'm not really sure, because I forgot to see who they really put in that top 10 list. I think Eichel was up there for sure. But I just think that John Tavares is, as a strong veteran player that he is in the points that he puts up every season, I don't consider him a top 15. I do definitely think that he should be like a top 10 or even in that 11 spot, just a little bit more higher up on those rankings for sure. Austin Matthews, I'd consider him perfect on that top 5. I think that he does fit well there, and I think that was a really good ranking.
I agree with you. Matthews at 5. That sounds good, and I think he's only going to keep moving up that list. John Tavares at 14. I don't like it. I think he should at least be 10. John Tavares has been doing what he does for a rather long time now. Over 10 years, he's been consistent. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. John Tavares should be a top 10 center in the NHL. That ranking, I don't like it. But I want to talk a bit about Austin Matthews. We'll get back to these rankings because I want to show a little clip of Austin Matthews. He's looking dangerous as always, and he's been practicing with Connor McDavid. Iron sharpens iron. Two of the best players in the NHL practicing together in Arizona, getting extra ice time together. That's only going to be beneficial for the both of them. And here's that little clip I was mentioning. That stick work is unreal. That shot is amazing. One of the best shots in the NHL for sure. I mean, it's going to be exciting to see what Austin Matthews does this upcoming season because I think he's going to have a huge year.
Like, I can almost barely even see the shot go in. That's how just quick and out it is.
So, talking about Austin Matthews, we're talking about this upcoming season as well. Most likely it's going to be, it will be a condensed season. If there's a season, I think there will be a season. We'll talk about that later if you guys want us to. How many goals do you think Austin Matthews will have in a 48-game season? Do you want to start?
Yeah, and I think, because I mentioned Hyman getting around 22 points. But for a guy like Austin Matthews who gets 80 points a season within 82 games, I feel like he's going to still be able to put up at least 60 points a plus this season. So maybe around like 26, 25 goals, somewhere around there, I think is somewhat decent, like agreeable, mainly just because he has been a goal scorer for so long. In his first year, he had 40 goals, and he's just been improving on his shot ever since. And I definitely find that with seeing the clip we just saw, he's hungry for goals, and he's absolutely ready. And I think he's going to take most of the shots that he can get during the regular season and make them count for sure.
Okay, call me a homer, call me what you want. I think I have higher expectations for Matthews this year, and without this pandemic shortening and condensing the season, I would have expected Austin Matthews, not expected, but I would have predicted, I would have went out on a limb and said he would score 60 goals in a full 82-game season. He was robbed of the 50-goal season, had 47 and 70 games before the lockout. I think Austin Matthews would put up 32 goals in a 48-game season. That's a wicked pace, and I see it for Austin Matthews. He has the second most goals since entering the league in 2016, only behind Alexander Ovechkin. He's an elite goal scorer, and he's going to be for years to come.
I agree with that.
So we've got some trade offers in the comments section here. Let's see. Which should we go to? Let's go with Engvall and Holl for Ryan Reaves.
Questionable, I think, for a lot of Leafs fans. I personally like Ryan Reaves. I think he's very, very, he's got a lot of grit to his game. It's just, it depends on where you want to replace, who do you want to replace Holl with? Because you can replace Reaves with Engvall, and that's decent. But how do you find someone who is already so much improved with his defense and replace him for a guy? I don't really see them doing that because of how well Justin Holl has improved on his defense. I find that that's the main thing that is about him, and I don't think that they're going to want to trade that. And especially a guy like Pierre Engvall, who is decently fast for the player that he is. So I would be iffy about it, but I think I'm just gonna say no. For me, it's not like a hard no, like a deny it right away. I would have a lot of thought into it, but for me, I'd probably say no.
Yeah, I see where Machaveli's coming from with this offer. It would be nice to add another gritty player, like a really gritty player in Ryan Reaves. But I thought Justin Holl was extremely improved last year. Pure Engvall, it might be nice to get rid of that contract. Sorry for watching, but I don't like it. So yeah, I wouldn't take this trade, but maybe if it was Engvall and someone else, I'd do the offer. So this one's interesting here. To Buffalo, Marner and Holl. And to Toronto, Rasmus Ristolainen and Reinhart and Peterka and a 2021 second.
Wow, we've been hit with a hard ball. I love Sam Reinhart. I think he's got so much room for improvement as a center. I love Ristolainen. It's just literally the only problem about Ristolainen. He doesn't play defense. He's not a defensive guy, I find. He doesn't. I've even seen a lot of people, speculate around his defensive part. He's just not. I think he's a good player, just not on that defensive part. And I find that, again, giving rid of a guy like Holl is going to ruin that defensive area where the Leafs need it the most. And I think that where Marner kind of stands is we already have so many centers at this point that we don't really have to bring in another one unless maybe you just don't re-sign Spezza next year or scratch him or something like that or send him to the A. But Marner, he's my favorite player, so I'm going to be a little bit biased. I would say no just because Marner's thrown in there because I love Marner too much. I think he's a terrific playmaker. He has so much room for improvement. I picture him being a guy who gets 95 points in at least 100-point season 2 times, 3 times in his career, and I really, I would say no to that trade.
Yeah, I would say no as well. My reasoning for it is, Reinhart. He's been on a line with Jack Eichel, and he's benefited from that a lot. Marner, you could say the same, being on a line with Matthews at one point or Tavares at another. But I see Marner as a speedy guy who can actually lead a line. I don't think Reinhart has that ability to lead a line, lead a first or second line. He can be a complimentary guy. I'm taking Marner and Holl. I'm keeping our guys. I don't want to accept that trade. I'm not accepting any trade from Buffalo unless they're giving us Eichel. So Sean Farrell, welcome back to the show. How's it going? Welcome to Toronto, Jimmy Vesey. Yes, we were talking about that early in the show. I think he's going to be the biggest surprise on the Maple Leafs roster this year. And if you're watching, make sure you send in your trade offers. We've been going through a bunch of them this show. It's been fun. It's been entertaining. We love engaging with the fans. So send in your trade offers, and we'll let you know if we'd accept them or not. And also, if you're watching this video, make sure you smash the like button. Hit the notification bell. You'll be notified every time I'm live on Leafs Talk Live every Tuesday night. Looking to expand that soon. And I've got a lot of content coming up. I've got the counting down the top 15 Maple Leafs players of the past 60 years. That next video, number 13, will be released tomorrow, 12 on Friday. I've got my reading stupid comments segment. That's very fun. I mean, I haven't had any stupid enough comments on this show to post, but let's keep it that way, guys. Do you think the Leafs are physical enough to make the playoffs and win the Stanley Cup?
I feel like at least there's some Leafs fans out there who think that Toronto at some point soon is going to win a Stanley Cup. I don't think it's going to be this year, but if there was any year to do it, this would be probably one of the best times because of the toughness that they added to their team. And with the expansion draft coming up for Seattle, you don't know who the Leafs are going to just surprisingly want to give up. And it could, affect them going into next season. And this is definitely one of the seasons that they have their team assembled. They have their lines figured out. It just depends on how well they play and how well they're fit with each other.
Yeah, I think they're physical enough. I mean, that Wayne Simmons addition is huge. You got a big body in Joe Thornton. He's going to be playing come playoff time. I expect him to kind of be a rotational piece with Jason Spezza throughout the season. Zach Bogosian is a big banger back there on the blue line. I'm excited to see what he does and brings to this team as well. I think, we're physical enough and we're definitely fast enough. So the big thing we have to be, and it's not even physicality, we need to be more consistent going forward. Because we had stretches where we looked like the Stanley Cup winners. We looked like the Tampa Bay Lightning at some points. And then we looked like the Detroit Red Wings at other points. We did not look so good. We're very inconsistent, and we have been for quite a while. Clean up our consistency, and I think, we're an actual competitor for the Stanley Cup in the playoffs.
I would agree with that.
We've got an interesting one here. Interesting trade suggestion, trade offer from my guy Joseph Clarke. He was on the show a couple weeks ago. I think he's going to be on the show again coming up soon. Well, he will be. I told him he's going to be. Matthews for McDavid, clean swap.
Obviously, yes, I would accept this trade. The only thing that would stop this trade from happening is the team behind the Oilers, because I don't think that they would even consider giving up possibly the current best NHL player in the league. I just don't think it would happen in real life. But if I was in control, I would, as a Leafs manager, I would accept the trade if I got offered that.
Yeah, I mean, I love Matthews, and he's our franchise guy, and he's going to be our franchise guy. But the answer is yes. I'd take McDavid for Matthews, clean swap. But as I was attesting to earlier, iron sharpens iron. And these two have been practicing together, and they had high praise for each other. I'm going to show the little little photo here again. So these two have been practicing together. Two of the best centers in the NHL. Number 1 and number 5 ranked centers by NHL Network. So, I mean, that's very exciting to see them working together. And they both have aspects of their games that they think they can improve upon. Working with each other, that's going to be beneficial for the both of them. So speaking of the NHL Network rankings, we're going to get back into, we talked about the centers. Let's talk about the wingers now. And the only Maple Leaf winger to crack this list was at number 7 in Mitch Marner. How's that for a ranking?
I feel like it makes sense that he is the only winger to really get up there. And I feel like him, where he's currently ranked, is a good spot because he does do very well. I think a lot of people are skeptical and put him at number 7 mainly just because of his injury for a while that he had this season. which he averaged still more points than games played after the injury. And I think that without that injury, he easily gets an 80-point season, almost just as much as Matthews. So definitely a good spot for him on number 7. I definitely consider him in that top 10 area for sure.
Yeah, I like the ranking area. I mean, I think he could debatably be a bit higher, but we're going off of last season would be my assumption.
Yeah.
And he dealt with a lot of injuries last season. He had nagging injuries the whole way through. You could tell he wasn't himself at a lot of times. So 7's good. I'd expect to see him leap into the top 5 by the end of 2021 season, though. We have a big trade offer here. I haven't even read it all, so let's just post it up there and we'll make a decision. Toronto gets McDavid, Cassian, and Edmonton gets Marner, Riley, Nylander, Faber. So this is a 3-team trade here. Nashville gets Larson.
Wow. I can't even begin to wrap my head around this. This is an interesting one. So Toronto's getting
Cassian and McDavid. Edmonton gets Marner and Riley and Nylander, while Nashville gets Engvall and Larson. I don't think Nashville would accept this.
no, and I don't even think that the Leafs would accept it to give up 2 wingers for just a key center. And a guy like Cassian, like, he's got a lot of grit, obviously. You've seen, like, everyone's seen his stats. He destroys people in fights and lays the body all the time. He's not afraid to do that. But we got a decent amount of that already right now, adding our new players. And I don't think that if we were to give up 2 key wingers who potentially play on the first line next season to just get that for McDavid, because then you would have Matthews, Tavares, McDavid, and you're going to force Tavares to play on that third line. Like, I don't know.
I don't know. It seems a little, no. Because you know what? I'm not giving up Morgan Riley. Nylander and Marner are the future wingers on this team. I'm going to say no. I would love to have McDavid, but I don't want to give up that many assets. And I get that you'd probably have to if you wanted McDavid, but I would not do that personally. So we're back to the NHL Network's rankings, and we're going to talk about the defensive rankings because there's only one Maple Leafs player to crack this list, and he was the final player on the list at number 20. Morgan Riley made the list barely. How do you feel about that ranking?
Now, obviously, like we talked about this earlier, Morgan Riley hasn't had somewhat of a partner within the past couple years. And this year he was injured for, I think, like 2 months and didn't really perform at his best, I find, when he during the playoffs and around the ending part of the season, or when he even came back, more than what he was doing at the start of the season. At the start of the season, he was producing points. He was playing very, very well. And you could see just after the injury how hard he kind of struggled. But I think that going into next season, I would put him higher because I do think that he has the potential to get to a top 15 or a top 10 for sure, in my opinion, and definitely live up to his expectations.
Yeah, Morgan Riley, another guy who was dealing with injuries last season the whole way through. I mean, 20 seems a bit low. He's been the centerpiece for this Maple Leafs defense for years. Not that our defensive unit has been solid by any means, but he's been the rock for our defense, and he hasn't had a solid partner. Ron Hainsey, debatably the best partners he's had. So, yeah, I mean, I'd like to see Morgan Riley get into the top 15 personally, and I think that this ranking should motivate a self-motivated player even more, light a fire under him. I expect Morgan Riley to jump into the top 15 by the end of 2021 for sure. So we're here on a Tuesday night, which means we're going to get into the Tuesday night trivia section of the show. And this week's trivia question for all you viewers, and I'm going to ask it to Brandon here as well. I have not told you the question, so I'm catching you by surprise. Just take a guess. How many Maple Leafs players have been inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame? And drop it in the comment section below what your thoughts are as well. I'll post the first one to get a correct answer or the closest answer. Go.
My answer is going to be so bad. I feel like it's more than what I think, though. Like in reality.
Over 100 years of Maple Leafs.
Yeah, like I feel like there's definitely. I'm going to take a wild guess. Around the 40s area, I would assume. So I'm just going to go with a random 42.
Yeah. Okay, we've got some guesses here in the comments section. 6 and 17. No, we're looking north of these questions or these guesses. If someone doesn't get it soon, I'll just be posting it. This is a chance for me to say, if you're watching this video, make sure you smash that like button, hit the notification bell. You'll be notified every time I'm live here on Leafs Talk Live. Got some more content coming out. Check out Brandon's channel as well. It's Let's Talk NHL. Some good content out there. He's got a lot of NHL 21 content. He pumps that out. So Joseph Clarke has the closest guess here at 50.
Oh.
It's 60 have been inducted into the NHL Hockey Hall of Fame. 60 Maple Leafs. Best team ever.
That's a Leafs fan for you.
Yeah, let's go Leafs. Bleed blue and white to the end. And, you know, we're talking about the Maple Leafs and how much we love them. But how about the teams we hate? Because here's a question I just thought up of randomly the other day. What team is currently the Maple Leafs' biggest rival?
I feel like it's a mix between Boston and the Habs, just because I know a lot of Leafs fans out there like genuinely just don't like the Habs because of the history of in hockey. I think that it's gonna obviously come down to Boston though, just because of the playoff chemistry that those two teams have had over the last decade, and I think that a lot of people can agree that there's been so much more intensity in the playoffs, and then even more going into regular season as well, that those two teams absolutely put on a show every time they step foot on the ice. I think that, you know, everyone has their own disturber on the team. Back then it was Nazem Kadri for us, and on the Bruins it was Brad Marchand, so that added even more sparks. So I would probably say the Boston Bruins.
I'm just posting this comment because this is my guy Joseph, Florida. I don't think that's right. Sledge Hockey 101. Interesting take. Tampa Bay. They're what Toronto wants to be. And yeah, I think Toronto's the closest team to what Tampa Bay is. By that I mean built the same. We might not be as skilled, but we're built similarly. My answer for biggest rival of the Maple Leafs. You know, there's recency bias in this if I say Boston, but I'm looking back through history of hockey, and you know, the team I hate most right now is definitely the Boston Bruins. But if I'm just talking about my life, what team I've hated the most, it's definitely the Montreal Canadiens. You know, looking back at those old brawls between the Canadiens and Maple Leafs way back in the day, long before we were born. But I think the answer has to be Toronto, Montreal, the biggest rivalry for the Maple Leafs. It's debatable with recency bias that it could be the Bruins. If we're looking from like 2000 forward, the biggest rivalry is Boston Toronto. But on a grand scale of things, I don't think Bruins fans consider us rivals. I think they just laugh at us. So yeah, I mean, Toronto Montreal is the biggest rivalry for the Maple Leafs, in my opinion. So as I was saying earlier, make sure you send in your trade offers We're going to be posting those throughout the show. We've been getting to a bunch. This has actually been really fun. Thought of this last minute, and I've really enjoyed this segment.
I really do too.
I might make this segment going forward as well, kind of be a GM. It's fun to do. So, what are your expectations for the Toronto Maple Leafs? That's the title of the show. What's the Maple Leafs season? What are our expectations? So, just off the top of your head, what would be a disappointment for this team in the 2021 NHL season?
I think such a disappointment is going into the league with the Canadian division just being added is to not be a guaranteed top 3 team in that division. If so, not even like in the top 1 area, because in reality they have such good defense. Their goaltending is on par, I find, and now they've fixed a lot of their problems in their forward lines. So I find that they definitely should rank at the maybe first area, if not first, maybe second. I feel like the Edmonton Oilers have improved on a lot of offense, but Oscar Klefbom might not even be playing on the team next year because of his surgery, so we don't know what that's going to be like for the Oilers. And their goaltender situation's kind of been a interesting hassle for them for the past couple years. So yeah, I think that a disappointment would definitely be to not be the number 1 team in the Canadian division next year.
So Ron Keats here says missing the playoffs would be the big disappointment for this team. I'm going to go, that'd be just a failure of a season in my opinion. But more so, I'd say that just not winning a playoff series would be a disappointment for me. Getting there to the first round, not even making it to the playoffs last year, not even qualifying past the qualifying round, that would be a disappointment for me. I'd be really pissed off, and you'd see a lot of content posted about it. And I guess that's a good thing about being a Leafs channel. I get to rant a lot. But, yeah, I want to see my team succeed. And I think for me, anything less than making the conference finals would be a disappointment, just like Joseph Clarke says. I agree with him completely. You can't expect the team to just jump to the Stanley Cup. We're Leafs fans. We want them to. But if we don't make the conference finals, or at least win not a draft, if we don't at least win a playoff series, it's a failure and it's a waste of a season, and it's also a waste of Joe Thornton's probably final season. Jason Spezza, these guys came here near the end of their career because they want to win. Wayne Simmons as well. These guys all want to win, and they want to do it in Ontario with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So we've got a couple more trade offers here. My guy Daniel Rojas is in the comments section. He agrees with what I'm saying. Make sure you send in your trade requests. And this one's interesting. Dermott to the Flames for Sam Bennett.
I find it's always been questionable with me with Dermott because I saw so many moments where in the playoffs he played a little bit too offensively for my liking. And I find that Sam Bennett's a pretty decent defenseman, and I feel like filling in the role of Travis Dermott could help out a lot if they train him to just be a little bit more defensively. Even Dermott would pan out a lot better, I find, if they just trained him more defensively. Just because I'm a little bit not too liking to Travis Dermott, I'd probably agree to this trade, not going to lie.
Well, I really like Travis Dermott. I'm a big fan of Travis Dermott a lot. Met him twice. Nice guy. Always got a smile on his face. First one in, last one out at the Leafs practice. I know it sounds cliche, but it's an honest thing. And, we signed him for just $10,000 more than he played for last season. He's the second highest in the plus-minus stats on the Toronto Maple Leafs, behind only Austin Matthews. I really like Travis Dermott. The part where it gets tricky for me is considering all the defensive depth that this team has, and that's not something that you would think from the Maple Leafs, but we've actually got a lot. We've got Liljegren and Sandin coming up. We've got Lettinen as well. And there doesn't look like there's going to be an AHL this season. So, I mean, maybe beneficial to get rid of Dermott and send him to the Flames, give some of these younger guys some playing time. But this is this is a conditional exception. I'd accept this on a condition that, we're actually playing a shortened season and the AHL isn't there. Then I'd accept this, but I really like Travis Dermott. He's just 23 years old. I think that he would be good for this team going forward, and he's going to be took a very good deal for the Maple Leafs, a team-friendly deal. I'd love to keep Travis Dermott, but it's all about the conditions, and I might have to accept that deal. That's a good comment. That's a good question.
That is a very good, yeah.
So continue firing out your questions here for us. Toronto gets Mackenzie, Weegar for Holl and Pierre Engvall.
Problem with me too is I don't even know. I know he plays. Was it Florida?
Yeah.
Florida. I don't know much about him because I've never looked at his stats. I know he's okay. He does do pretty decent. But I think he's like a third or fourth line player, I'm assuming. And giving up Engvall, I wouldn't mind because what actually you mentioned earlier, his contract is something that would be nice to get rid of. But again, I'm just not on the page with Justin Holl. Maybe if we gave up something like something else for it, like maybe if we gave them a second round pick or a different kind of draft pick with Engvall, I could do that. But just because I love Justin Holl as a defenseman too much, and I think he still has more room to grow, I wouldn't accept that trade.
I think Mackenzie Weegar, he's got a lot of value. He had an impressive showing towards the end of the season last year for Florida. I like what Justin Holl's doing, but he's 28 years old. Not very much room for improvement going forward. Pierre Engvall, I don't like his contract. I mean, I don't think it would happen, this trade, because Florida just locked up Mackenzie Weegar not too long ago, a couple weeks back. But yeah, I'd take this trade. I'd take Mackenzie Weegar for Justin Holl and Pierre Engvall. Offload the Engvall contract. Even though it's not that much, we're playing with nickels and dimes. We're the Maple Leafs. We don't have much cap space. And as for Justin Holl, I like him, and he really improved last year. But he's at 28 years old now. There's not much room for improvement. So I'd have to accept that deal. Nylander for Trocheck and $3 million cap space retained by Carolina.
I'm confused with that $3 million retained part.
Carolina would retain $3 million, is what I believe.
Oh, they would. Oh, okay. I mean, obviously, it would be good for Carolina. I just don't think. I think Vincent Trocheck is good. I do like him as a player. It's just, again, I think that Nylander has so much more to show that he's just not quite showing yet. And I think that he could definitely show a lot more these upcoming seasons that we have him for in his contract. And I think that I would want to keep him around. So I would have to say no trade.
I'm going with Sledge Hockey 101, my guy. Hell no. Hell no. Ron Keats earlier in the show said hard no to another trade. I'm going to upgrade to hell no because, Trocheck's a center, and you attested to it in another trade offer we got. We don't need more centers. We're solid there. I would take William Nylander, keep him, and, Trocheck's locked up for a little while. Nylander, he's going to be locked up for another 4 years, I believe. So I'm keeping the young gun and William Nylander. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer to keep Nylander in this deal for me if I'm Kyle Dubas. And that's who I'm playing as. I'm being Kyle Dubas today. So if you've got any more trade offers, send them in. This has been very fun. Now, this comment here, lots left on free agency, but a couple weeks back, maybe around a month ago, Luke Fox of Sportsnet, he reported that the Maple Leafs appear to be done making off-season signings. So if there was a trade offer that were to come about and Kyle Dubas, it was worth considering, he would obviously consider it. And, names like Zdeno Chara are still available out there. That's been a big name. We can talk about that in a bit, actually.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
But I don't really think that we're going to make any signings. I think Joe meant to put up no cap space left for a big name D-man here. We just don't have the cap room. And, what we've done so far has been exceptional. This offseason has been exceptional considering the nickels and dimes we were playing with. But, yeah, says it never would happen about Chara. But, Zdeno Chara, let's talk about him. I think Chara would bring obviously it'd be another veteran presence piece in this locker room. It'd be great to have that. And the reason Chara succeeds so much isn't because of his speed or anything. It's because of his long stick. His stick's like over 6'7" or something. Like his stick alone. He is obviously taller than that, but his stick is super long. That reach is ridiculous. That'd be an asset that I'd love to have, but I don't see it happening either. What do you think?
I think that if we were to get Chara, like just for example, if we had that cap to get a guy like Zdeno Chara, I think he could bring a lot of leadership to the team. I don't really see him going on the top line. Like he would definitely fill out a spot on that third line for sure. But I think that he could bring a lot of leadership because, like you mentioned, he's a veteran player. He's a one-time Stanley Cup champion. And he's led the Boston Bruins to a pretty decent decade. Not as so much for winning a lot of Stanley Cups, but just playing at least at that consistent level and, definitely keeping the team going when they've been down for sure.
This one's probably the most interesting trade offer we've gotten. Nylander for Dougie Hamilton.
I think I might let you take this one first, not gonna lie.
I really like Dougie Hamilton. I'm gonna have to say yes to this. I'm sorry, but I think that Nylander, he's replaceable. It's true, he's replaceable, and we've got a guy. I'm gonna show a little clip of a guy here. This gives me a perfect opportunity to show someone I expect to replace Nylander in a couple of years if we were to ever trade him, which I don't think we ultimately will. But this is the guy. You might be familiar with him. So that is Rodon Emirov, our first-round pick this year. And that's a big part of the reason why I would accept that trade. I would take Dougie Hamilton to solidify our defensive unit. Imagine a defensive pairing, Dougie Hamilton and Morgan Rielly, and then second defensive pairing, say you put Muzzin with another big body in Bogosian, or you could even go a different route, put Brody there. They'll give us a lot to play around with. But the only reason I'd say no is because of our defensive depth. But ultimately, I think I'd accept this.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that too. I love Nylander, obviously, but I think Dougie Hamilton is such a good defenseman. Has been a key defenseman for Carolina for a while now. And I think that adding him would help a lot and improve the defense even more than what it already has been improved. But like what you mentioned is their defensive depth situation is I don't know how they would make it work, but I would definitely accept this for sure.
Yeah, that's a good trade. And Joseph Clarke, sticking with Nylander trades. Everyone's always making rumors about Nylander. I would not want Marchand. Brad Marchand. I call him Marchand. Screw that. He's a rat.
No, wouldn't take it. We already traded one rat who didn't really put a lot of hatred from what I was hearing in the locker room or anything like that, but put a lot of anger and attitude problems on the ice. So to bring in someone who's got even more of that, it would be toxic.
Fair assessment. I mean, Marchand, to be fair, he's a guy that you'd want on your team, but I I don't want him on the Maple Leafs ever.
No.
We'll take a couple more trade offers, and then we're gonna get out of here. It's been a really fun show. Uh,
Absolutely.
Rusty Nailz, he's been on the show a bunch. Shout out to him. Colton Perico, to
From
Toronto
St. Louis, yeah.
from St. Louis for Nylander and Dermott or Holl.
This is a good one. The only thing that's making me not want to accept it is probably adding in Nylander. If you were to maybe do Dermott, Holl, and
Kerfoot. Would you do it with
that
Kerfoot?
would even be good. That would even be good. Him or Engvall would be pretty good too to just add to that. But I feel like Kerfoot has a lot more value. So probably Alex Kerfoot. Just because Colton Perico has proved a lot over the past couple years and how well he can play both defense and offense. So I think that definitely adding him to the team would help out a lot. And like what you mentioned, Justin Holl definitely has such a small gap to improve because of his age. But Dermott has some a lot longer, but just I think that adding a guy like Colton Perico would be a lot better. And we still have those young defensemen who would easily be able to fit in the lineups and they could grow as well. So
And he just added on to this. It's the same trade offer. He says Brody is a top 4, not a top 2 pairing defenseman, and that's a fair assessment. I appreciate that comment, but I don't think I'd want to trade Nylander as for Perico. Nylander, he's got a really bright future ahead of him. If it was Dougie Hamilton, I would do it, but I mean, yeah, I'd throw in Kerfoot, Holl, and Dermott even. I'd
yeah.
send 3 their way and a draft pick, maybe like a second or third, but I wouldn't want to get rid of Nylander. He's got one of the better contracts on the team, and I think that a lot of Leafs Nation's failing to recognize this. I'm not calling you out, Rusty. I'm just saying that I think a lot of Leafs Nation fails to realize that he has one of the better contracts on the team. I don't understand why there's so many trade rumors about William Nylander, because outside of Toronto, and this is actually something that our fans do, we hype up a lot of players that maybe shouldn't be hyped up, and I'm not saying that's Nylander, but outside of Toronto, his trade value just isn't what it is in Toronto. I don't think other teams value William Nylander, a second line winger, maybe a first line winger. I don't think they value him as much as the Maple Leafs do.
Yeah, I think the weirdest part is that I think that Toronto, or at least the media, doesn't really see a whole lot in him like a couple other people do, because he's got so much room to improve and has been doing that. Like, look at the season he came off of. I mentioned this earlier, the slump where they couldn't figure out his contract. And then he comes in this year and puts up, I think it was 59 points, and could have put up
goals.
30 goals. Could have put up a 65-plus point season with the 82 games played had we not had the COVID pandemic. But definitely a key player, and I don't really think that we should be just giving up on him too soon over one slump or over what media is saying about him.
Yeah, I agree. I really like Nylander. I think he's got a bright future. I've said it a bunch. Probably sound like a broken record, but yeah. And this has been fun. I think this is a segment we're going to incorporate into the show a bit more going forward. We'll get you back on the show at some point. I've got another guest coming on next week, I believe. I think someone who's already been on the show. Not going to say it. I'll make a post about it on Instagram, Facebook. And if you guys haven't checked out my Instagram page or my Facebook page, make sure you do that. I'm over 1,000 page likes on Facebook. I'm approaching 400 followers on Instagram, and I just made a Twitter. It is what it is. But also, if you're watching this, make sure you smash the like button, hit the notification bell. You'll be notified every time I'm on here. So one more question. We're like signing out here, but there's one more question here I want to get to, because it's a good one. You think Marner or Nylander will have the better career?
I feel like there's a lot of people that would say Nylander, and I'm not even biased saying this. I think just in general, Marner would end up having the better career because I mentioned it earlier. I think he's beneficial to put up 90 points a season, at some point get to 100 points at the level once 82 games are able to be played. I think that he's just got so much more playmaking ability that he sees so many passes that most other people don't, and his vision has been absolutely amazing throughout the times he's been on the Leafs. So I definitely think that Marner would have the better career, but it would be close. Nylander is going to also have a pretty good career.
Before I answer this, I want to give a shout out to a new viewer. First time commenting, great show. Thank you. Just started to tune in. Keep up the great work. Hey, we'll be back here every Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you tune in every week. I've had a couple NHL players on here. Got my guest from Let's Talk NHL on here, and Brandon. I've had my friend Joseph on the show once. He's going to be on again soon. And back to the question, do you think Marner or Nylander will have the better career? And this isn't an insult at Nylander or anything, but I think the no-brainer answer is what Ron Keats says. I think it's obviously Mitch Marner. He's just got such a high ceiling, and that is why, the contracts are representative of that as well. Marner being paid close to $11 million. Nylander on a bargain deal at $6.7 million. The contracts, the money figure that they're getting paid, is representative of their talents and their ceiling. Marner's got the higher ceiling. He had 94 points just 2 years ago, and he's had over a point per game each of the last 2 seasons. That's going to continue going forward, and I think that in a 48-game season, close to 60 points is realistic for Mitch Marner.
I would agree with that.
Rusty Nailz wants us to continue with the trade talk chats. Awesome, cool, and fun. Hey, if you want it, we'll be back with it. That's what it's all about. Giving you guys the best show, the most entertaining content we can. Try to stay engaging. I have my Tuesday night trivia question of the week. And maybe I'll be posting, I have my stupid comment videos on here every week. Maybe I'll do a comment from someone who claims to be a Leafs fan, that the comment does not represent that. Maybe I'll say Leafs fan or not, and you guys can tell me what you think. I don't know, looking for more ways to make this show fun and engaging. If you've got any ideas, drop it in the comments section after the stream's done. I'll get into it. Brandon, thank you for joining the show. You've been an awesome guest. Is there anything you want to say to close off the show?
Thank you, everyone, for coming on and watching, and just thank you so much for having me. This was an absolute awesome experience, and this was just absolutely incredible to talk about Leaf stuff like this and get into so much detail. Such an interesting way to present it, too, with all these segments. I really, really think that you have a bright future on YouTube for sure, man. Absolutely awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot, and you as well. So if you haven't checked out his channel, make sure you go subscribe, like every video he's got up there. Let's Talk NHL. He's got a lot of NHL 21 content. He's got some Leafs content, stuff around the league. Check him out. I appreciate that. The future is bright for Maple Leafs media, so make sure you check us out on all platforms. We'll be here for a while. Till next time.